Welcome to yet another tutorial on YData Fabric. Today we'll be covering how you can easily integrate Fabric with your Databricks Delta Lake. We'll be showcasing how you can sync Fabric's data catalog with your Delta Lake, and at the same time we'll be also covering how you can easily generate synthetic data so that you can write directly into your Delta Lake and share it in your catalog with other teams for privacy preserving purposes or just to augment the baseline of your data. To start with, and because we want to consume data from our Delta Lake, we will need to create the connector. I'm going to jump into the data catalog, connectors, and create my first connector. For that, I'll need the information from my Databricks Delta Lake. I have two things that I'll need, the name of the catalog that I want to connect to, as well as the schema from where I want to consume the data, and finally, the data set that I want to use. I'm going to copy the name of the data set so it makes it smooth while inputting my information in Fabric. So I'm going to create connector. I can select different connectors for Databricks. In this case, I have the Databricks Delta Lake that I'm going to select. Because my instance is on AWS, that's what I'm going to choose. Then I just need to input all the information that is required, provide the schema, and the display name, Databricks. I can test the connection. As soon as everything is okay, we can just click and create the connector and it will be automatically available. As soon as our connector is available, we can finally create our first data set. Jumping back into our data catalog, I can just add the data set, select the connector that I have available, give it a name. So in this case is credit scoring. We can select the starter warehouse, paste the table name, select whether it's a tabular or time series in case there is a time dependency in between records, in this case a tabular, and select if we want PII detection. In this case, I do want to check whether my data has or not PII. I don't know, so it's handy that I have something that can help me manage PII or potential PII. I can give some tags, add a description, and create the data set. This process will be extracting some metrics in terms of quality of the data, and as soon as it's available, its status will turn green. Now that the dataset is ready, let's explore it a bit. So as you can see, we automatically have here a set of metrics that go beyond the traditional statistics. So of course you can have access to the mean, median, and variation of the different variables, but you also have right away warnings on the quality of your data. We already know that this data set has a label, and one interesting behavior to analyze is rather whether the label is imbalanced or not. And we can see that he has a high severity of imbalancement, which means this is something that we should account for while doing our data preparation. Of course, there are others, like for example, uniqueness for some of the variables, or even in terms of cardinality, how they are behaving. Now that we have analyzed this, we might want also to double check or do an in-depth profiling for each and every variable. You can check how our profiling works in other videos, but we also want and we are interested in double checking the identified PII. So jumping into the data set, the metadata tab, we can select the PII types and see that we actually have four variables that are considered indeed potential PII, the ID, the NS number, driver license, and credit card, which was actually identified as a credit card number. Now that we have all this information, it is now time to generate a synthetic data based out of this data set. So jumping into our synthetic data tab, I'm going to create our synthetic data definition and configuration. So just click it here. We need to select the data source that we want to work with. We only have one, but if we had others, for example, even a database, that would be an option that would be shown here. I don't want to generate the ID actually because I know this has no value and I can just use the index of the data set. So I'm just scrape it out. Um, double check all the metadata, all seems more or less fine. I want to keep though the SNS number and the credit card, but I know they are PII, so I'm going to anonymize. I already have here the credit card with a suggestion for anonymization. So let's add the SNS number and select the SSN type of masking and add it to our definition. Select a credit scoring, give a name, select the target. Even though this won't be used for our synthetic data generation process, it's useful for our metrics of validation of quality of the synthetic data set. Particularly, this will help us with utility and validating whether this data will be good to train, for example, machine learning models. Select the label, keep the privacy level as high fidelity. Doesn't mean it has privacy, it still has, but it means that we are okay or more relaxed to have data a bit more closer in terms of statistics to the real one. Save, and this will be training our first synthetic data generator. The process can take a few minutes because we are training a generative model, but as soon as it's available, we'll be able not only to generate synthetic data, but also to write it directly to a Delta Lake. Now that our synthesizer is ready, let's open it up. We see that our quality report is still being generated. There's no problem. So let's generate a synthetic data sample. Going to select 10,000 rows for my synthetic sample. And I wanted to write it to my Delta Lake. That's what I'm going to do. So select the connector for write. I have, in the meantime, created another one just because I don't want to write my synthetic data to the exact same catalog and schema. I want to share it with a different team. So select the new connector, select a destination to write, in this case, credit scoring. Select the warehouse that I want to use for the computation and for the write. Give a name, credit scoring synthetic, and define just a method in case this table already exists in my Databricks catalog. I want it to fail the process. Click in generate. This will not only generate a synthetic sample, generate a very detailed profiling report with visuals in terms of the fidelity of the data, but will also automatically write it to Mount Delta Lake as I have instructed. Now that our sample is already generated, we can finally compare and check in terms of fidelity how the data looks like. And as you can see, of course, the ID was not generated, so it's not shown. But we can double check that the label originally was highly imbalanced. The synthetic data kept the same behavior. We could have dealt with that through conditional synthetic data generation, but we didn't want it. Our objective was to generate a data set just with the same behaviors as observed originally. We can observe other variables. As you can see, the behaviors statistically and in terms of histograms are very similar. And this is helpful for us to understand the quality in terms of fidelity of the synthetic data. Let's see if our synthetic data is already written in our Databricks Delta Lake. So jumping into our catalog, we see that inside the YData dev synthetic data schema, we do have the credit scoring synthetic data set. It does have all the variables as expected. So as you can see, we have already written our synthetic data. I hope you have enjoyed and see you in the next video.